In the year 878, a king sat in a marsh with nothing but a handful of soldiers and the ruins of his kingdom. His enemies controlled nearly all of what would one day be called England. His people believed he was dead. History should have forgotten his name. But Alfred of Wessex did something no other Anglo-Saxon ruler had managed. He survived. And in doing so, he changed the fate of an entire nation. This is the story of how England was forged by war. When the Romans abandoned Britain in 410 AD, they left behind a patchwork of peoples, languages, and loyalties. Over the next 4 centuries, Anglo-Saxon tribes carved out kingdoms from the wreckage: Northumbria in the north, Mercia in the heart, East Anglia along the coast, and Wessex in the southwest. These kingdoms shared a language, a religion, and a culture, but they did not share a nation. They were rivals, bound by blood feuds and territorial ambition. England, as a political idea, did not yet exist. For generations, this fractured world endured. Kings rose and fell. Battles were fought over borders that shifted with the seasons. It was a stable kind of chaos until the Vikings arrived. The first Viking raids struck in the 790s, swift, brutal, and terrifying. Monasteries burned. Coastal villages were emptied. But these were hit-and-run attacks, not invasions. The Anglo-Saxons could recover. Then, in 865, everything changed. A Viking force, unlike any seen before, landed in East Anglia. They called it the Great Heathen Army, and it wasn't interested in plunder. It wanted land. It wanted conquest. Led by the sons of the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, this army cut through Anglo-Saxon England like a blade through cloth. East Anglia fell. Northumbria collapsed. Mercia, the greatest of the kingdoms, was brought to its knees. By 870, only one kingdom remained standing: Wessex. Wessex had survived not because it was stronger, but because it was lucky. Its king, Æthelflæd, and his younger brother Alfred had managed to hold the line, barely, but the Vikings were relentless, and the kingdom was running out of time. In 871, Æthelflæd died. The crown passed to Alfred, a scholar, a Christian, a man who had never wanted to be a warrior king. He inherited a kingdom on the brink of annihilation. Alfred's first year as king was a nightmare. The Vikings attacked again and again, probing for weakness. Wessex fought 9 major battles in a single year, an exhausting war of attrition. Alfred won some. He lost others, but he held the kingdom together. Then, in 878, disaster struck. A Viking chieftain named Guthrum launched a surprise winter attack. His forces overran Wessex before Alfred could muster a defense. The king was forced to flee into the marshes of Somerset with only a small band of loyal warriors. To the outside world, Wessex had fallen. Alfred was presumed dead, but Alfred was not dead. He was hiding, regrouping, and planning. In the swamps of Athelney, he built a fortress and began to rally his people. Messengers were sent in secret. Old oaths were called upon. Slowly, an army began to form, not a professional force, but farmers, thegns, and desperate men willing to fight for their homes. This was Alfred's genius. He didn't just fight, he adapted. He learned from the Vikings. He understood that survival required more than courage. It required strategy, endurance, and faith. By spring, he was ready. In May 878, Alfred marched out of the marshes and met Guthrum's army at Edington in Wiltshire. The battle was brutal. Shield walls clashed. Men fell by the hundreds. But Alfred's forces fought with the desperation of those who have nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. By the end of the day, the Vikings were broken. Guthrum retreated to his fortress at Chippenham, where Alfred besieged him. 2 weeks later, the Viking leader sued for peace. The Treaty of Wedmore was more than a ceasefire. It was a turning point. Guthrum agreed to convert to Christianity and withdraw from Wessex. In exchange, Alfred recognized Viking control over the eastern territories, creating a boundary known as the Danelaw. But Alfred wasn't satisfied with survival. He had seen what invasion could do. He had seen how fragile kingdoms could be. So he set out to build something that couldn't be destroyed. Alfred spent the rest of his reign transforming Wessex into a fortress state. He established a network of burhs, fortified towns placed strategically across the kingdom, never more than a day's march apart. Each burh could shelter civilians during raids and serve as a military stronghold. He reorganized the fyrd, the national militia, so that half the forces were always on duty while the other half worked the land. This created, for the first time, a standing defensive force. He rebuilt the navy. He commissioned new law codes. He promoted literacy and education, translating Latin texts into Old English so his people could read the laws that governed them. When Alfred died in 899, he left behind more than a kingdom. He left behind a system. Alfred's son, Edward the Elder, inherited his father's vision and his ambition. Working alongside his sister, Æthelflæd, the Lady of the Mercians, Edward launched a decades-long campaign to reclaim the Danelaw. Æthelflæd was a military genius in her own right. She built fortresses, led armies, and negotiated treaties. Together, the siblings pushed north, capturing Danish strongholds one by one: Leicester, Derby, Nottingham. The Vikings, divided and leaderless, could not hold. By the time Edward died in 924, Wessex controlled all of southern and central England, but the final prize remained out of reach: York. In 927, Edward's son, Æthelstan, marched on York, the last great Viking stronghold in Britain. The city fell without a major battle. The Norse king of Dublin fled. The northern lords, seeing no alternative, submitted. For the first time in history, one ruler controlled all of England. Æthelstan styled himself Rex Anglorum, King of the English. He minted coins. He held councils. He enforced laws that applied from the Scottish border to the English Channel. England was no longer an idea. It was a fact. But unity was fragile. In 937, a coalition of Scots, Vikings, and northern lords marched south to challenge Æthelstan's authority. They met at Brunanburh in Northumbria. The battle was apocalyptic. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle called it the greatest slaughter since the arrival of the Saxons. Æthelstan's forces held the field. His enemies were shattered. After Brunanburh, no one questioned who ruled England. The unification of England was not inevitable. It required vision, violence, and generations of effort. Alfred didn't conquer England. He saved Wessex. But in saving it, he gave his successors the tools to build something greater. Edward and Æthelflæd turned defense into offense, reclaiming lost territory piece by piece. Æthelstan finished the work, transforming a patchwork of kingdoms into a unified realm. But the story didn't end there. Within a generation, Viking invasions resumed. By 1013, a Danish king, Sweyn Forkbeard, conquered England again. His son, Cnut, ruled a North Sea empire. In 1066, William of Normandy, a descendant of Vikings himself, invaded and seized the throne at Hastings. England would be conquered twice more in the century after Æthelstan, but it would never again be fragmented. The idea of England, of a single kingdom, a single people, survived every invasion. That was Alfred's true legacy. England was not born in a single moment. It was forged in fire, war, and political survival. It was built by a king who refused to give up, a sister and brother who refused to stop fighting, and a grandson who refused to accept division. The England that emerged in 927 was not the England we know today, but it was the foundation. It was the beginning, and it all started with a king in a marsh who chose to fight back. If you enjoyed this story of how invasion forged a kingdom, make sure to subscribe for more forgotten chapters of medieval history. Next time, we'll explore what happened after the Normans arrived, and why 1066 is just the beginning of the story. Thanks for watching. And remember, history is written by the survivors,